Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor here, and today we have a treat because we have an author and a speaker with us who, I'm going to say it, and I hope I don't offend her, really brings the sexy back to health and nutrition, wellness, ancestral living, and that author is none other than Nell Stephenson. And Nell, the reason I say you bring the sexy back is because I think you take something which sometimes people may call the caveman diet, and you show it you turn it into a much more friendly and sexy and doable and practical just way of living. And I appreciate that, and that's why I wanted to bring you on the show.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm very glad to hear you say that, because that is precisely what I want to do. I want to take this healthy way of eating, which we call the paleo diet, and show everybody that it's actually not that strange. It's just a common sense approach to eating. Lots of healthy local vegetables with some fruit, wild proteins, and healthy fat. Nothing in a package in a wrapper. So if you think about it in that type of a terminology, it's just common sense eating. And I really like to present it in a manner that everybody can do it in an easy, friendly, welcoming way, rather than making it appear that you have to be a caveman or something like that, which just isn't the case.
Absolutely. Well, and especially since cave women are just as relevant in many households, even really the arbiters of how individuals are eating more. So ensuring we communicate in a message that's friendly in that sense is also very important.
Exactly.
Well, Nell, just to back up a little bit, one of the things I love about you is you work with Dr. Cordain, who in many ways is the founder of the modern paleo or ancestral movement. And I'd love to just back up and talk about your story and how you got hooked up with Dr. Cordain, how you got turned on to just eating real food and all that kind of fun stuff.
Absolutely. I actually found out about the paleo diet by accident. I had stomach issues my entire life, and I couldn't figure out what was causing them because I was eating what I thought was a healthy diet, and I was getting sicker every day. It basically got to the point where I was having to go to the emergency room, having to go see GI specialists. None of them would ask what I was eating, which I thought was kind of strange. I was given lots of different prescription medications, different diagnoses for things like irritable bowel, colitis, told not to eat vegetables because it would be too harsh on my stomach, all kinds of advice that I just thought was very nonsensical. And I was just frustrated and thought there's got to be something that I'm eating that's causing this distress. So I went online and learned that we can have a latent allergy to gluten, which means sort of lurking there in the background. And it might happen when you're 2 years old, it might happen when you're 70, but something occurs and your body just kind of says, I've had enough. I can't take any more gluten. I refer to it as the gluten tipping point in my book. And after I learned about that, I began eating a gluten-free diet for about a year, and I felt a lot better. But after learning that something I ate my entire life, which I thought was good for me, was actually causing so much harm, I felt like there was a little seed of doubt planted, and I wondered what else I might be eating that I thought was good for me, which actually wasn't. So I went back online and did a little bit more research, and that's where I stumbled upon the paleo diet, which basically just talks about the connection between lots of the diseases and illnesses we see in today's society that are killing us as a society, that weren't present when we ate a more natural, whole diet before the agricultural revolution. And I just thought it made sense to try it. So I gave it a try, and I felt so much better in such a short period of time that I was convinced. I didn't need any further proof than that. And I felt compelled to write to Dr. Cordain just to say thank you, because his work changed my life. And little did I expect that he would actually reply and say that he, first of all, wanted to use my email as a testimonial, but also invited me to be a part of his newsletter because he liked my writing style. I had already begun my blog, which I contribute to every single day, which is about all things paleo. So that's how our relationship started, and we worked together on an implementation program the following year. And then finally, he invited me to co-author his cookbook in 2010. And to this day, he remains my mentor and somebody I highly recommend anybody who's interested in paleo or just living a healthy lifestyle. His books are, I think, a crucial part of anybody's paleo library.
That's so awesome, Nell. And just to bring a few things home and to shine a light on a few excellent points you made there for the audience. So for folks who aren't familiar, Dr. Loren Cordain, he's at Colorado State University, is that correct?
Yes.
And Dr. Cordain has been doing, I at this point, I have no idea how many academic and peer-reviewed papers he's published, but Dr. Cordain was one of the academic founders and really a champion in the academic world of bringing what is popularly called the paleo diet, but one thing I love you mentioned, Nell, which is more just eating foods we evolved to eat. In fact, it's actually the normal diet. It is, if you look at the span of human existence, it is what we ate for the vast majority of time. So it's in some ways unfortunate that we nowadays refer to it as a diet, because in some ways it is the normal way of eating, and the way we're eating now is a diet. So Dr. Cordain popularized that. And the thing that I love that you said, Nell, was the idea of making healthy again. We're doing things that you were told were healthy. We're actually making you sick, and discovering a way of eating, which I like to actually call the normal way of eating when we look at the broad scope of time, and making healthy again.
Exactly. I think, and that's one of the reasons why I liked your video so much too, is that we feel the need to sort of categorize and tag all these different methods of eating. But just the idea of telling people to eat real food, it's so simple, but it's become so complicated because several reasons. Most people want a quick fix. They might have taken 5 or 7 years to become 50 or 100 pounds overweight, yet they think they want to lose that weight in 2 weeks. Or after a lifetime of eating poorly, they develop different health issues, and rather than look at what they're eating, they go to the doctor and ask for prescriptions and continue eating the junk, which is causing the problem in the first place. So it's kind of like a Band-Aid. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think if we realize how simple it is in terms of what we actually are supposed to be eating, and then just recondition ourselves to understand how easy it is, I think it could change things tremendously.
Well, I want to dig into that now, because one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get is without question that this is simple. Like the analogy I always use is to smoking, where if you don't want to get lung cancer, it's very simple, just don't smoke.
Right.
But where it becomes more simple but maybe not easy, and where I'd love your insight is, imagine we were living in the 1920s, where almost everyone smoked. Smoking was legal everywhere. Avoiding secondhand smoke was almost inevitable. I mean, or it was nearly impossible, because in some ways that's the world we live in today, where it's simple. We just eat things we find directly in nature. However, that's not easy, given the quote unquote secondhand smoke we're exposed to everywhere we go. How can we make it easier in today's modern society?
I think, part of it is education, learning what actually is, what's in our food, where is it coming from, asking questions. And also, the simplest thing that we can all do without spending a dime or even really spending any time is stop buying the junk. It might seem like a small trivial thing, but these big companies that are selling us all these things that are so bad for us, they're doing it because they're making a lot of money off of it. And the only way to send a message to these big companies is to stop contributing to them. So every time you don't go to McDonald's, every time you don't buy that junky candy bar, every time you don't buy that 64-ounce soda, that's a way to send a very strong message. So that's one thing that we can all do. And that's, like I said, it's something we can all do. It doesn't matter if we're a student on a budget or somebody with all the money in the world. Just sending that message is very important. Asking questions, learning about what we're actually supposed to be eating, and really taking the common sense back into it. Even if you're not somebody with a science background or you haven't really paid that much attention to mind-body connection and that sort of thing, but just really, really taking a step back and thinking of the common sense, looking at something in a wrapper, in a package which has an ingredient list, 20 things long, some of which you can't even identify as food, yet it's easy. So that's therefore, in a lot of people's opinion, a good reason to eat that, versus taking, maybe an extra couple of minutes when you're at the grocery store to grab an apple and some sliced turkey and maybe some spinach and make a quick salad on the go or something like that. It's just a matter of learning and reconditioning bad habits and replacing them with new good habits. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Well, Nell, what do you say? Because one thing that you do so well, I know you work with people a lot, and you have all these wonderful downloadable guides that really outline just literally everything you need to do day in, day out, what you're eating day by day, meal by meal, and those are available at your website, paleoista.com, which is Paleoista.com. But what can people do or start doing today to start living that lifestyle, to make it easier?
Well, I refer to this in my book too. There's 3 steps that I refer to, which the first of which is the kitchen makeover or a kitchen clean out, during which you take everything out of the kitchen that's not good for you and get rid of it. If you feel better, you can always donate the non-perishable goods to a local food bank or that type of thing. But get rid of anything with white sugar in it, with flour in it, with all these different types of refined products that do nothing other than increase the shelf life. Get rid of all the junk, all the sugar, and kind of start over with a clean slate, clean the kitchen out, literally. And then step 2 is going to a healthy grocery store field trip, if you want to call it a field trip, if it's a new adventure for you. And that could occur at a Whole Foods. It could occur at your local farmer's market. If you're on a budget, it can occur at a local chain grocery store. Just learning how to budget accordingly and having a plan, going to the market, shopping around the perimeter, which is where you'll find all the fresh produce, vegetables, and fruit. You'll find the meat section, the fish section, and so on. And going and coming home really just armed with abundance of fresh local foods. And then step 3 is what I refer to as an hour in the kitchen. And a mere 2 times per week, if you can spend 1 hour doing things like steaming a couple batches of veggies, baking a couple of proteins, washing your whole pieces of fruits, washing and spinning your lettuce leaves, that sort of thing. After you have come home from the grocery store, then you see an entire refrigerator full of fresh, ready-to-eat foods. And that is incredibly time-saving, and none of us have lots of free time these days. So that's a very important thing, is just having that food ready, prepared. And you can take it one step further and package everything to go, whether you're going to work or your kids are going to school. And it really, really takes a lot of the stressing and the effort out of it by just being so prepared, because you'll always be with your food and you never have to worry about whether or not you'll be able to get a healthy option or what additives it might have. And then if you can do that most of the time, it balances out with the times when you do go out to a restaurant. And I enjoy eating out at least once a week, if not twice. And it's completely doable. It's just a matter of asking a lot of questions and learning who does the best steak that doesn't have a soy marinade, and can you ask for some steamed vegetables rather than rice pilaf on the side, and things like that. It's all about the delivery of the order, and most of the time the server is more than happy to help you because they'll stand to receive a better gratuity anyway.
I love what you said now about the time in the kitchen, because you mentioned it's really just a couple of hours, and we're so quick in our culture to say to throw time at the gym, right? Like we'll spend time driving to the gym, driving home from the gym, showering after the fact, doing our hair. I mean, at the end of the day, this 30-minute workout ends up being this 2-hour ordeal. Right. And honestly, if we spent those 2 hours divided across 2 days, I mean, if you spend 3 additional hours in the kitchen, you're good for the week. And what that will do, in my experience, for your health and well-being is dramatically superior to jogging for 5 hours a week.
Right. Yeah, people don't realize the significance of the nutrition, and that's something that I'm really trying to get across to people is there seems to be this big misconception that, I've gone to the gym for an hour so I can eat whatever I want for the rest of the day. Or in the athlete population that I work with as well, there's this thought that, I race marathons so I can eat whatever I want, I can get away with it. And it's just not the case. I mean, I suppose you could say they're getting away with it in the sense that they could probably eat more calories than somebody who's sedentary and not gain as much weight. But that doesn't matter. The bottom line is if you're putting junk in, you're going to get junk out. So people don't understand the way food works. It's not a case of just numbers. I loved what you said about the body not being a math problem, but a biology system. So it's not just a matter of find out your height and weight, and then that's the number of calories you need a day, and it doesn't matter where they're coming from. It's learning, and I think it's quite interesting to learn about how the different foods affect the body and learning how to balance out the macronutrients so that you're not functioning on blood sugar highs and lows and insulin responses, which is going to lead to diabetes over time. But just really keeping it balanced, eating real food throughout the day is really the way to go.
Well, no, you mentioned a word there, balance, which conjures up thoughts in my mind of this other word, which I actually consider a dirty word nowadays, and that's moderation. Mm-hmm. Because I think that word, kind of like balance, like for example, now if you went on a daytime talk show. I could imagine you coming in, saying a lot of what you've said here, and then the camera would cut away, you'd go behind stage, and the news anchor would say, so, as Nell mentioned, it's all about moderation. So, and actually, that's not what we're saying. It actually sounds like there's some foods here which, even in moderation, can do quite a bit of damage.
Absolutely. And I actually did a blog post on that very topic not too long ago. That idea drives me absolutely nuts, that everything should be eaten in moderation. It's ridiculous because things like, look at white sugar. White sugar is so toxic, so potent, and I don't hesitate to refer to it as far as what it really is. It's a drug. There was a study that was out last year where rats were fed, at one point in the study, they were fed sugar, and at one point they were fed cocaine. And when they had the option to choose, they all chose sugar. And when the sugar was taken away from them, they withdrew into a fetal position and began shaking. What does that sound like? That sounds like rats withdrawing from a drug. So, and I don't take this lightly. I don't mean to be offensive. I understand the magnitude of people that are dealing with drug addiction. In fact, I have a family member who's going through a heroin addiction right now. So I've seen that firsthand. So it's not to make light of that. However, in that case, never in a million years would you tell that person, oh, you're trying to deal with a heroin addiction. Let's just give you a little bit now and then. Mm-hmm. It's not, and I don't think that's an extreme exaggeration. I think that's a legitimate way to compare it. Any amount of white sugar is too much. It's not, there's nothing remotely healthy about it. There's no reason why anybody can argue that it's a good thing to have in your diet. And the problem is, I'm sure lots of your audience listening can identify with this. How often have you said, I'm just going to have one cookie? Well, how often is it really one cookie? Because when you eat that white sugar, the pleasure center in your brain is basically, it gets a high, and it tells your body that it's a good idea to have more. And at that particular moment in time, there's a chemical reaction that goes on, and you feel at that particular moment in time that you should go ahead and have more. And then you have all the other emotions tied to it. Oh, I'll be, quote, good tomorrow, or I'm just going to have this one last, festival of eating ice cream and cookies and that kind of thing. And it just needs to be stopped immediately. So that's really why I have an issue with that everything in moderation thing. And the other thing is with paleo, when you're eating a balanced diet and you're satiated and you're eating food that's not only good for you, but tastes good and balanced, and your blood sugar stays level, you don't want those things that you think you might be craving right now. You honestly don't, especially if you can identify those things with making you feel poorly or actually making you sick. It becomes a lot easier to take them out from your diet permanently.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nell, which is for a lot of individuals trying to eat some of these toxic edible products in moderation is actually harder than if you were to just avoid them for, let's say, 3 weeks, and then just you don't want them anymore. Because again, like you said, is it if your goal is to not overeat Girl Scout cookies, because I'm seeing those getting sold all over the place now. So I love Thin Mints. For me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners, if my goal is to avoid eating an entire package of Thin Mints, I would be better served to not eat any of them rather than just eat one of them, because that one is not going to do anything to satisfy me. It's only going to make me want more. Right. That's all it does. It doesn't satisfy you. It actually just drives you to eat more.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, looking at the paleo diet, you're so balanced and everything is so local and fresh, and all the nutrients are being provided to your body. And is there room for a treat in the paleo diet? Yes, there is. But it's meant to be had on something that you have on moderation, like once in a while on a special occasion. For example, I have a recipe for a paleo truffle, which is very decadent. It's made with very high quality raw cacao, coconut oil, almond butter, and that type of thing. But there are these little tiny truffles that you make, and you have one, and because it's balanced out with the fat from the coconut oil and the almond oil, and there's no refined sugar in it, you can have this treat once in a while. And I'm talking about on a birthday, on a Christmas or something like that. But it's not meant to be something you're having on a daily basis. And that kind of is where one of the main things that we need to rethink is desserts, treats, that type of thing aren't something that we need to have regularly.
Well, Nell, you made a key point there, which is also the inclusion of fats in these treats. Because my podcast co-host, Carrie Brown, she is a former world-class pastry chef from England. And what she started to do is she has made what we call SANE or more paleo-friendly versions of all of these kinds of treats. And what you find is that when you have these wonderfully healthy fats like coconut and raw undutched cocoa, and you eat like a SANE or paleo friendly cupcake, which is made with a coconut flour or things like that, it actually does satisfy you. So where these empty toxic treats really don't do anything to satisfy, they actually just trigger cravings. When we enjoy these healthy fats, in addition to potentially natural and less damaging ways of providing a sweet taste, those actually do satisfy.
Oh, absolutely. It's it's just reconditioning that whole sugar high and low, and also the fear of eating fat. So many people, myself, I used to fall into this category as well, being a child, a product of the early 90s when we had the low fat thing going on. But so many people are afraid to eat more fat. And again, paleo is not a high fat diet. It's just higher than the typical recommendation of my plate. But people think, oh, what if I'm trying to lose weight? Won't fat make me fat? And actually, that's not the case. If you're talking about real healthy fat like avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, the fat that we find in a piece of wild salmon, those are all good fats. And not only do they help you feel more satisfied, they help you absorb many of the vitamins and nutrition and the minerals that are in the other parts of our diet. So it's that fat is actually good for you. And including more of that makes you far less likely to have a binge and far less likely to have a craving in the first place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's so key. But what do you say for individuals who do have, like, I have a sweet tooth. I have a notorious sweet tooth, and I've found healthy ways of indulging it. But for individuals or even for children who do have those sweet tooths, for me personally, I've found that it's not actually the sweet as much as it is the flavor of cocoa. So if I eat undutched cocoa, I find that my sweet craving goes away. And so it looks like I'm actually not craving sweets, I'm craving something else. Have you found other tips or tricks like that?
Well, that actually, rather than having a tip for it, what I do is when I have a client that says I have a sweet tooth, that raises a red flag for me, because I want to know when somebody says sweet tooth or crave sugar, we need to backtrack. What did you eat last? How much did you eat? Was it properly portioned? Did you eat enough? Was the macronutrient ratio accurate? If you were exercising, did you factor a recovery meal or snack from the exercise? What did you eat before you worked out? All these things, because anytime your brain gets to that place where it's saying, I need sugar, I want sugar, I crave sugar, I have a sweet tooth, that tells me your blood sugar is dropping. And so the normal reaction is that the brain tells you need sugar, which it does. But that doesn't mean you have to go right into going, hardcore candy fix. Because even if you start to get to that place where you're a little too hungry and your blood sugar is dropping, you can still nip the insulin response in the bud by having a healthy protein, fat, vegetable type of a combination. So say you're working from home one afternoon and 4 o'clock rolls around and you're starting to feel a little sleepy, irritable, cross-eyed, whatever your specific symptoms of hunger seem to be. Rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to go out for an ice cream, or I'm going to go to the coffee shop and have a coffee and a milkshake, or rather a cake and a milkshake, which is a muffin and a whippy coffee drink.
Exactly.
You can head over to the fridge and have some of that leftover chicken you had the night before with some spinach and a little bit of olive oil, just a small bowl of it. That will actually stop the insulin response dead in its tracks and switch you into a glucagon response, which is the antagonistic hormone from to insulin, which will actually tell your body everything's okay, everything's balanced. We can actually go ahead and use fat for a fuel. We can save the carbohydrate for the next time our skeleton is moving, and that's what's going to set you up for weight loss if you're trying to become a bit leaner.
Well, and Nell, what do you say to individuals who it's less of a craving, let's say, for sweet, but almost more of an emotional drive for indulgence, just to feel almost like a little bit naughty. Like, if this is a treat, I'm going to treat myself. What do you say to how do we handle those kind of emotional eating states?
Well, that's actually a really good question. I've had so many clients, and I mean, most people these days do need to lose weight. And I can't tell you the number of clients I've had who will say something like, I was, quote, good all week. I lost 3 pounds. So I treated myself to an ice cream sundae over the weekend. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, because that's not the idea. We need to, yes, you should set up a reward for yourself, but it shouldn't be a food reward. So, one thing I like to do is treat myself to a manicure. So some of the ladies out there might want to go to the spa and do a mani-pedi or a facial. Some of the guys out there might find reward in the fact that now their pant size has gone down to a 32 from a 36, or whatever the case may be. But a reward system is very important, absolutely, for both for small steps and big steps, especially if you've got a big goal. For example, if you've got 50 pounds to lose, 100 pounds to lose, if that's your only goal, that's going to be a long time in the works. So it's important to have short goals as well. And not only just weight loss goals, like maybe your goal is to lose 1 pound a week or 2 pounds a week, but also things like, I've had clients who have let themselves get into a very progressed state of unhealth where walking up the stairs is difficult. So that might be a little landmark. The fact that you can now go up the stairs without feeling winded, or you can walk around the block 2 times, whereas before you could only do 1. So setting up a reward system is very important, but it should be not a food reward, because that in itself makes you sort of feel like you've got to. We need to move away from the idea of this is a diet with an endpoint. It's not. It's a lifestyle, and it's sustainable to do all the time because it is so balanced and the foods do taste so good. It's not diet restrictive, low calorie, trying to live on celery sticks and low fat cottage cheese. Not at all. It's abundant and plentiful. And so it's sustainable long term. And going back to the rewards, you need to have a reward, absolutely, but it should be not a food reward.
Wow, Nell, those 2 points right there, I just want to bronze that up on the mantle, because what you said about you've got to have a reward system, but even if you want like a visceral reward, like maybe get a massage.
Exactly.
There's other ways to reward yourself that can even make you feel that like guilty pleasure, like have a spa day, do things, that indulge more of these, call it like almost like an animalistic pleasure. Like there's other ways to do that. Spa day, massage, it's a little bit more visceral, a little bit more animal-like. There's other ways to do that aren't going to compromise your goals and may actually even further your health. And I love what you said about this idea of the need to treat. As long as we think that, it reiterates in our mind that what we're doing is temporary and what we're doing is a form of deprivation. And I would argue that if we feel that, and we've talked about this with Carrie on the podcast, is that things which traditionally would be thought of as treats, if prepared properly, are perfectly fine to eat. Let me give you an example, and maybe I don't know if this will pass. I don't know if this will pass the Nell test, but you tell me. So I had a craving for some ice cream the other day, because I saw I was out of town on some family business, and everyone was eating ice cream, and I didn't really want to have any ice cream, but I was like, I remember eating ice cream back in the day. So when I got home from my travels, got out my Vitamix blender, and I took some undutched raw cocoa. I took some casein-based, all-natural protein powder, which I know our ancestors didn't have access to, but it can't be perfect. And I took some xylitol, which is a natural, less damaging sweetener. And I took some other ingredients, and I turned that into an ice cream of sorts, which was very, very delicious and very, very nutrient dense, and I think quite sane. So I didn't really feel like I was treating myself. I felt like I was just creatively solving a problem.
No, exactly. And I call myself the queen of concoctions. I love doing stuff like that. And you can actually, doing that once in a while, it satisfies that need for something special. And it's, the mouthfeel of the ice cream, that smoothness, but without the downside. I know, for example, if I eat something by accident, which doesn't happen very good because I'm rather anal about making sure I don't have anything hidden in my food, but my reaction to dairy is I'm very congested the next day. So I choose to avoid it for that, as well as for the acidic contribution it makes to the body. But you don't need to have it, because you can make things like what you just described. I make a smoothie for myself in the morning often if I've got a long workout ahead, where I'll use coconut water, banana, coconut oil, or avocado for some fat. And then I'll blend in, you can actually, rather than using protein powder, you can take a couple of eggs, soft boil them for 6 minutes, because that's a nice happy medium between making it soft enough so it will still blend up quite nicely, and raw, which is, when you cook an egg, it does lose some of the nutrition. However, understandably, many people are uncomfortable with the idea of eating raw egg. And I would be too, unless you know for sure, for example, your neighbor has hens and the eggs are fresh and the risk of salmonella is relatively low. You can do raw egg, or you can do 6-minute egg, but just so that you have some protein in there. And then I'll throw in some turmeric, which is naturally anti-inflammatory, some ginger, which is good for the stomach, I'll throw in a little bit of vanilla because I like the flavor, and I'll also put in some raw kale. And it's such a nice, thick, lovely smoothie that you've made at home. You know exactly what's in it. It's balanced because it's got some protein, some fat, some carbohydrate, and it's nice and thick and delicious. So there's really no end to the amount of concoctions you can come up with. So I'm a big fan of that.
And I like to use the analogy of finding a beautiful outfit on sale, because I joke with my wife. I'm like, you can go to a nice department store, a nice mall, and if you don't, and find nice clothes. There's no question, right? If money's no object, you can find nice clothes. But it's you feel extra special when you find that outfit and it's 50% off, because you're like, not only did I get that outfit, but I did it smartly. So in your scenario here, not only did I have this smoothie, which was delicious, but I furthered my goals of having robust health and being delighted with the way I look and feel. That 1-2 punch, you want to talk about feeling good after you eat something and just feeling good in general. There's no guilt with that. That just feels great.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
Well, I love it. Now, one thing I wanted to close on here is I know you work with a lot of individuals, and I know you work with quite a few females, and I'm sure then you work with a lot of families. And one issue I hear with individuals is children, and the fact that, kids aren't always with you. They're going to schools, they're going to friends' houses. How can we, those of us who have families or who take care of small children, what would you say are your top 3 tips we can have to help our children avoid this toxic environment that we live in today?
Well, first of all, there's got to be a balance. Unless the child has something where they absolutely medically have to avoid something, like, for example, if they've got celiac disease, they absolutely have to avoid gluten all the time. If the child doesn't have a disease like that, I'm a fan of keeping it paleo at home, but not making a big deal or a fuss when the child goes to school and has a birthday party or something like that. Because, the bottom line is, if you make it so rigid that they feel ostracized at school, and they go to the birthday party and everybody knows, there's the kid that his mom won't let him eat a cupcake or something like that. The last thing you want to do is create a situation where they're, when they're old enough to choose their own food, they're repelled from paleo and they want to just, do nothing but eat fast food all the time. So if you keep it as balanced as you can at home, knowing there's going to be, there will be times where they will be at a birthday party or they'll be at a friend's house and they'll have something that might not be what you would like them to have. That seems to be the best approach that I find that my clients who have children use, and it works really well. In fact, and I think a lot of times we underestimate kids' ability to process and think and make good choices. I had one client who said that her 8-year-old son, she picked him up from school one day, and he said, "Mom, I ate some cheese doodles today at school." And, she uses that approach where she's paleo at home, but she tries to be a bit more flexible with him when he's at school or at a friend's house and that sort of thing. And she said, "Oh, really? Well, what did you think?" And he said, "It wasn't really that good, but at least it was a Whole Foods kind, so it wasn't that bad, but I didn't really like it." So it's just a good example. This kid knew that he could try something. He didn't love it. He told his mom, and he probably won't eat that food again. And he was only 8. So I think that's the most important thing, is to just keep it balanced and don't turn it into a big deal if and when they have something that's not, unless, of course, your child does have a disease where they medically, are risking their life if they have this particular food that they might have an allergy to or what have you. And the other thing is getting kids involved, getting the whole family involved. If children can help in planning a meal, and this goes for kids of all ages, younger kids can flip through the pages of a big, beautiful cookbook with lots of colorful pictures and, literally just point or pick out like that. Older kids, if they're, toddler age or something like that, they can help doing things like tossing the salad with their hands, mixing, that type of thing. And then kids that are older, old enough to help with the actual cooking, teenagers can help with chopping and preparing and that type of thing. So the more they're involved and they see their product come to life from what is just a table full of ingredients into a lovely meal, they're much more likely to be interested in it compared to if they're never exposed to it in the first place. And I think ultimately the most important thing is leading by example. If you're healthy and fit and you're that cool soccer mom or that dad that's got more energy than the other dads or that kind of thing, the kids will want to be that way, versus if you're one way and telling them to eat another way and just sort of forcing it upon them, that doesn't seem to work very well.
Oh, I love it. Now, on the quick follow-up question is cost. I know some people, you've named the store Whole Foods a couple of times, which I know some people refer to as whole paycheck.
Right.
So what do you recommend if you're feeding a family of 5 and you are on some tough economic times? What do you do?
Well, I think, first of all, definitely true. I get that point is a very good one, and not everybody has the budget to shop at Whole Foods. However, the analogy Whole Foods, whole paycheck, there does need to be a little bit more of a connection, realizing that food and what we eat needs to be a priority. So for some clients, they just need to rethink that. I had one guy who was doing most of his shopping, I think, at Target once a month, which tells me that everything he was doing and buying and eating was packaged in boxes and cans. So that needs to be rethought. However, it is unfortunately much cheaper and affordable to eat a poor diet than a good diet. So we don't have to shop at Whole Foods. We just have to be savvy. So doing things like buying in bulk when it's an option. Say you're planning on making dinner of a wild salmon preparation, and you go to the fish store and you see, well, wild salmon's $24.99 a pound, but they've got halibut and it's half the price. Stock up and buy extra and freeze the remainder. So being flexible about what you're going to buy and learning how to buy in bulk and what you can do that you can save in the freezer, and that goes for all types of proteins. Keeping it local is also really important. Here in Los Angeles, we're pretty spoiled in the sense that if I wanted to, I could go to Whole Foods today and buy blueberries, which, by the way, came from Chile. I could buy grapes that came from somewhere else, very, very far away. I could buy asparagus from Peru, but I don't need to do that. So thinking about what you're buying and how far it's traveled, we're not supposed to be eating the same thing year round. We're supposed to be eating seasonally. So keeping it local and organic also helps to save on cost.
Well, and now I love what you said about just potentially there may be some additional cost here, but it is really a values issue, kind of. I mean, if you look at the statistics around what individuals are spending on food in this country compared to other industrialized nations, it's lower in this country. And if you look at what we're spending as a percentage of our income on food relative to what we did historically, it's dramatically lower. So, and I think there's also interesting observations to be made in the sense that during the worst economic climate since the Great Depression, a technology company such as Apple, which is known for selling very, very expensive products, which we probably don't actually need to survive,
right,
has seen the largest growth and become the largest technology company in the world during a time of such economic downturn, kind of shows that if we value something highly enough, we'll find a way to make it work. And the type of investment we're talking about here is something that will pay dividends way beyond what the next iPhone would pay for. I don't know, that's just my opinion. No,
absolutely. And the thing is, if you cost out how much you're spending, I mean, take a single guy who doesn't have a family to support and ends up eating most of his meals out every day. That really starts to add up too. And just for argument's sake, I actually I took the weekly food bill that I spend for myself and my husband at Whole Foods, and I divided it up into 2 people and the number of meals we have, and I came out with an average of $7.14 per meal. So that's, grass-fed meat and local organic kale and avocados and olive oil and apples, and all these things are local and fresh and organic, and you're not going to get $7.14 meals like that at most places I'm aware of. So it actually, it's reallocating the budget to a degree and becoming more savvy about what you can buy in bulk and be cost effective that way. But really, and then there's the argument of either pay for eating better food now or pay for it in the end with healthcare costs. So it really just makes sense to be preventative and proactive versus throwing a bunch of junk in your body, treating it like a trash can, and then trying to fix it later.
Absolutely. And I would say that how much benefit do you think an individual would get? Like, let's say that you don't have access to a Whole Foods, or you live in a rural area, and however, you are able to go and focus more on foods you could find directly in nature, although maybe the vegetables have to be frozen, maybe some of the proteins have to be canned. It seems, at least in my experience, that you could derive a massive amount of benefit around that, and it could be quite delicious. And if that was the situation you're in, you're looking at maybe $2 to $3 a meal.
Oh, absolutely. And I've actually, one of the case studies in my book, I talk about this woman, Tanya, who contacted me from her post in Kabul, Afghanistan, where she's stationed for the U.S. Navy. And she is paleo there. You know, granted, a lot of the stuff that we ended up being creative and advising her to eat were different from what I would advise a local client in Los Angeles to eat. So there's gray areas. For example, most of the choices that she can easily get at her compound involve fast food. So for her, eating packaged tuna that she rinses to remove some of the sodium is a better option than eating at McDonald's every day. So things like that, and you know, yes, the tuna, eating too much tuna is not a good idea because you run the risk of having too much mercury. So we have to be creative and take that into consideration as well. However, the point is, if the desire is there and the motivation is there, you can make it work anywhere. It doesn't, you know, it's not only for those of us who are in areas like Los Angeles where we're spoiled with all the access to fresh foods.
I love it. I love it. Now, I want to be really respectful of your time here because I know you're a busy woman. And along those lines, what's next for you? What can we come to? What can we look forward to on the Paleoista horizon?
Lots of projects in the works, actually working on book number 3, so stay tuned for more on that. My download plans are still available for sale on my website, and they are usually about 6 weeks long, although I have a couple of different options, and it's a PDF, point and click, and it will tell you exactly what to eat, portion sizes, easy preparation tips. It's a really good guide to help you in conjunction with your study on paleo living if you're looking to do something like that. You can follow me on Twitter at Nell Stephenson. You can like me on Facebook.com/Paleoista, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Nell. When you're also going to be speaking at the upcoming Paleo FX conference, correct?
I am indeed. That's going to be at the end of March in Austin, Texas. And if anybody's out there that's listening to your show, please feel free to come up and say hello.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nell. And everyone, I would highly recommend checking out Paleoista.com. Nell's cookbook is fabulous. Lots of wonderful ideas in there. And I think she really does a great job. I think you could hear in this podcast that Nell definitely holds a high bar up in terms of food quality. So when you look at the recipes and what Nell is able to do while restrictions is the wrong word, but like the beautiful murals she's able to paint, but with the limited set of colors she allows, it just shows how diverse and how beautiful we can make our diet, even if we hold ourselves up to what I would call some of the highest standards I've seen out there. So kudos to you, Nell. I think that's a great example.
Thank you. I love the analogy.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful week. And remember to eat more and exercise less, but do it smarter. See you next week.